Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report today for Friday, March 29th, 2013. My website is ggnonline.com and on YouTube it's ddarko2012, ddarko2013. Those are my YouTube channels. Okay, we left off with this article right here, terrorized by drones, Afghan civilians increasingly fleeing homes, and it's also feeding widespread anti-American sentiment. I wanted to get this quote in here. Besides the fact that these drone strikes have soared from 294 in 2011 to 506 last year. So one Afghan villager said, "These are evil things that fly so high you don't see them, but all the time you hear them. Night and day we hear this sound, and then the bombardment starts." So it says here, the strikes sometimes accidentally kill civilians while forcing others to abandon their hometowns in fear. I remember mentioning, said these foreigners started a problem. They said of international troops, they have their own country, they should leave. So this, and trust me, they will, and you know, when they go and they go back, they're going to be using these against American civilians, you know. And I remember I mentioned before about probably about what, 6 months ago, not even 6 months ago, maybe about. Probably about 4 or 5, yeah, about 4 months ago, I remember hearing a drone, first seeing a drone. At first I heard it, then I saw it because I could hear it. It sounded weird. It was kind of lower, and then at night I heard it, and I'm just like, man, it sent chills down my spine because I'm like, those things are really, really, really scary, dude. Because once you see someone get blown up or a house get attacked near you, or you have one of your residents or houses or property gets hit with one of these things, and you hear that sound before you get that big traumatizing explosion, it's gonna rock you and it's gonna traumatize you. And I think that's part of the point. Russia backs Syria firmly as UN prepares chemical weapons probe. I don't know what that actually implies when they say they're backing Syria, but diplomatic impasse over Syria deepens as Russia blasts moves to recognize the Syrian opposition and demands to be represented in the UN investigation into the alleged use of chemical weapons. Russia is laying to rest any thoughts that its support for President Assad might be wavering. So, it says here that the use of alleged chemical weapons by the Syrian opposition, they blasted as illegal. And also the official recognition of the Syrian opposition by some countries. They're recognizing terrorists, I guess. B-2 bombers based in Missouri send message to North Korea, so it's just escalating here. Two Missouri-based B-2 stealth bombers have carried a clear message from the U.S. to North Korean leaders that basically we can keep provoking and provoking you. That's the message, right? So the bombers made the 13,000-mile nonstop trip from Whiteman Air Force Base all the way to near Noster. So, but it says here the U.S. Strategic Command said the mission demonstrates America's ability to conduct precision strikes quickly and at will. It says here that North Korea responded by saying that this proves the brigandish ambition of the U.S. imperialists for aggression. It said the B-2 flights were an ultimatum that the U.S. will ignite a nuclear war at any cost on the Korean peninsula. It was a reminder to the North Koreans that there are things that we can do that they have no defense against. I mean, man, dude. It's like these assholes do all the provoking, right? They do all the, I mean, North Korea isn't controlling our monetary system, you know? They're not infiltrating our airwaves with propaganda. They're not trying to subvert us. They've done nothing to me or my family, or I don't have any property, but if I did, I don't know anybody else that's been affected by North Korea and them messing with their property, staging troops and exercises along our borders. No. So the United States completely provoked this whole thing. And in kind, North Korea, if they don't put out any kind of rhetoric about bombing the United States or something like that, that he'll appear weak. So that's all he can do. So they're playing off this. Now, whether it's a whole distraction for what's going on, what's going on with the U.S. Arms Treaty or anything else, you know, the recent TPP, Transatlantic Trans-Pacific Partnership, you know, there's a lot of real things that are going to move forward here, but this stuff will just go on, right? But they are playing a dangerous game. U.S. sends nuclear-capable B-2 stealth bombers to intimidate North Korea. The fighter jets dropped munitions on a nearby South Korean island as Washington called it a drill. So the Obama regime has sent nuclear-capable B-2 bombers to drop munitions on South Korean island in an unprecedented move intended to intimidate North Korea. North Korea sees the drills as part of a U.S. plot to invade and become particularly upset about U.S. nuclear activities in the region. Nevertheless, the U.S. continues to militarily antagonize the authoritarian government in Pyongyang. It says U.S. stations 28,000 troops in South Korea. November 2012, the U.S. upgraded its weapons system and announced an agreement with Japan that would allow South Korea to bomb anywhere in North Korea. So, says this aggressive approach has only served to increase instability and tensions. And just recently, they just signed a pact between South Korea and the United States. This is after all the provocations and where North Korea basically ended the ceasefire armistice and that from the Korean War. You had the U.S.-South Korean pact saying that basically any kind of conflict or anything, the U.S. would completely and fully back South Korea. So illegally, they could do this before, but they just didn't emphasize it, that of any small conflict. So this is what they like to put in the media then in the West, in the UK, and the U.S. North Korea burning with hatred for U.S. after stealth bomber missions. North Korea claimed its people were burning with hatred for the U.S. after Washington confirmed it had flown B-2 stealth bomber deterrence missions over South Korea. So again, like just imagine China flying like these stealth bombers in neighboring Canada or Mexico. I mean, what kind of, how would you feel about that? But it doesn't really matter because if there was a big war like this, all these idiots and useful idiots, these zombies, they literally are physically. I think they could be scientifically proven to be zombies at this point in time. They're going to have to be swimming the beaches. They can go and do it, I'm not going to do it unless they call me back into the Marine Corps. I'm going to try to refuse, maybe get locked up in Fort Leavenworth or something. But, this is a stretch. But it's just like if they do some kind of draft or something, all these useful idiots can go fight this war that was completely provoked from their own country, right? And they can go act like they have to do this, like they did in World War II, or otherwise, fascism is going to overtake their country, or communism is going to overtake their country, even though they were already fascists and they funded the communists. I mean, it's unbelievable how these people don't have any sense of history. U.S. Wargames, North Korean regime collapse. So U.S. Wargames, North Korean regime collapse, invasion to secure the nukes. Sounds familiar, right? Like in Syria, we've got to secure the nukes. So North Korea's young leader today ordered his missile batteries to prepare to launch against the U.S. and South Korea targets. The latest act of belligerence, act of belligerence that the U.S. has left the United States. So if you don't bow down to basically Western imperial powers that mostly are controlled by Zionists, then you're acting belligerent if you don't get on your knees and start sucking them off. You see, this is so ridiculous. I'm sorry, I'm getting irritated here by it. But the people believe this, so they believe it, and they believe that North Korea actually has the ability to invade the U.S. mainland. Again, World War II. Someone left a comment in the comment board about if someone was complaining about how that mission, that mission cost, that B-2 mission cost, like, how much money for what? For intimidating a sovereign nation? So, I went in there and I showed a comment. I made a comment on somebody else says, "Oh, you'd be speaking Japanese and German right now." In other words, if we didn't feed into the propaganda and go over there and kill a bunch of people, then you'd be speaking German or Japanese. Like he didn't understand that they weren't actually going to be able to carry out an attack on the U.S. mainland. They were just taught that. They didn't understand that 50% of the American population was actually of German descent, and those are the same type people. Like, the person that made a comment that would be locking up Japanese Americans and Japanese in camps. So useful idiots. I guess it's good that they put out that propaganda film, Red Dawn, recently. So, and one last point here, I'll move on. I don't know if you guys caught in that movie in Red Dawn where the guy was like the main character was the older brother was. It's like, yeah, back in when I was in Iraq, or Afghanistan, whatever he said. He's like, we had to use we had to use, improvised devices. We had to fight basically the bad guys. He said, we're the good guys. We had to fight the bad guys, the terrorists. And now, and now we have to be the bad guys. It's really weird psychology how they just flipped it around. We have to use the tactics of the bad guys. So it's like, no, actually, if you're defending yourself from an invading country or a government, a centralized, federalized government that's impeding on your rights and your sovereignty, well, then you're a good guy. See, the people that he was fighting over there, they were good guys. They were fighting to maintain their culture and their heritage and their sovereignty. You were the bad guys. Doesn't mean you're anti-American if you say something like that. I mean, what I just said, it doesn't mean you're anti-American. I think it could be whatever you want it to be. I think it should be something where either basically it just doesn't encroach on other people's sovereignty. That's it. But when you have corporations running your country and infiltrated and in your quote representatives, like Monsanto writing the Monsanto bill and Obama signing it off, then who's running the country? Then you're going over there and you're fighting for oil. You're fighting natural gas reserves. You're going to fight whatever for corporate international interests. Russia, China warned U.S. against military drills near North Korea. So not very surprising, but they strongly rejected increasing military activities by the U.S. on the Korean Peninsula, warning that escalating tensions could destabilize the entire region. They say it worries us. These are unilateral actions taken against North Korea that are demonstrated by increasingly military activity. We may simply let the situation slip out of control, and this will spiral into a vicious cycle. Biggest threat to the United States national security is war. So let's start another war so we can decrease our national security. North Korea declares a state of war with South Korea. This is the most breaking news. I said they've entered a state of war against southern neighbor, stating that from now on any issues between the countries will be resolved in a wartime manner. From this time on, North-South relations will be entering the state of war, and all issues raised between the North and the South will be handling accordingly. A special statement by the country's top military command. Again, the West loves when the North and the South can't unite, because they would be one big powerhouse. They got to keep them divided. Russia launches surprise large-scale 36 warship military exercise in the Black Sea. Many were wondering what Russians' response to Germany's deposit confiscation drill in Cyprus would be, an attack on their energy supply. It says here the confusion was moderated somewhat after it uncovered that the Russians were supposed to be punished, have been able to withdraw most of their Cyprus base cash either the day before. Basically, they were able to take out their cash. I just covered that. So Putin issued the order to start previously unannounced maneuvers. These are large-scale unannounced test exercises, including 36 warships and warplanes. Russia Mulls establishing bases in Afghanistan, says we will look into various options of creating repair bases on Afghan territory, the head of the Defense Department said. He added the maintenance of weapons and military hardware in Afghanistan remains a top priority, as any instability in the country would affect Russia's own security. Remember, Uzbekistan, don't forget that as a way of, like a kind of a military arsenal or battery base. Russian oligarch resigns from parliament after a National Post investigation reveals Israeli citizenship and Canadian assets. A Russian oligarch who's maintained high influence in Moscow since the close of the Cold War resigned his seat in the Russian parliament after the Post revealed his dual citizenship with Israel. We have this, and basically stashing assets in Canada. Human Rights Watch offices raided in Russia. Russians say that this was just routine after they passed that law, but they searched the offices of New York-based Human Rights Watch yesterday after they stepped up raids against pro-democracy groups, that's regime change groups, despite growing EU concern. Actually, the EU is going to they're trying to set up a permanent pro-democracy raising fund. In other words, a destabilization regime change fund, slush fund. They're actually going to have that out in the open. But these Human Rights Watch groups is a big joke. Obviously, they don't care what's going on in Syria. A year later, Human Rights Watch admits Syrian rebels guilty of atrocities of kidnapping, torture, and murder of civilians by Syrian opposition. It's been confirmed, finally. They also, George Soros funded Human Rights Watch, that's who does it, jumps on the Coney 2012 AFRICOM crusade. So don't forget, that's how it all started, the Coney 2012, about the recolonization of Africa and that. So, and now it's Mulls. They're going to build 2 more Antarctic research bases. Then you have China create $800 million tax-free entertainment culture hub in Beijing. Remember when China bought a bunch of AMC theaters last year? Iraq Oil Once seen as a U.S. boon, we're going to pay for the war with the oil, is now mostly China's. UN approves new combat force to target Congo rebels, so they approved it, and France may permanently deploy soldiers in Mali. Thank you.